and welcome back to Starcaster Remarks for the first edition of our Sunday night hour-long episode. Along with Chris and James, my name is Ryan. Welcome to the podcast episode. Thank you to DraftKings Sportsbook for being our sponsor. Go and use that promo code THPN the next time you are there. I'm just gonna be totally honest with you. I was just working on some stuff. I got some school stuff going on that I need to get going, and Chris texted me like probably 6:45 and said, you still doing this thing? And I was just like, I completely forgot. But nonetheless, we're here and we've got a lot of things to talk about to you guys with tonight, because thankfully we had already been kind of discussing some of this stuff, but we'll get into that here in just one moment. But we just want to check in on Chris and James and see how y'all are doing. Are y'all doing okay today?
Great.
I am still very much sick, but I'm here.
It makes your voice sound sexier though, James, so we like it.
It does make it sound a little deeper.
Sunday. Can you do that real quick? Do it, James.
Sunday.
Yeah, see, it actually works pretty good.
I don't know.
I don't like it. I hate that you made me do that.
Okay.
All right, moving on.
Yep. Anyways, going on to our actual episode tonight. Here's what we got. We've missed a lot. We've missed quite a bit. Just because of the last month has been crazy. There's
Busy
been
boys.
Yep. There's been some coaches being fired, some contracts terminated, big players signing in places. Finally, we no longer have to speculate about where that player is going. A couple trades, some Calgary stuff, and then we'll get into some Stars stuff as well. We're going to get into the fact that the Stars are not drawing any calls in the NHL right now. What's going on with that? We're going to talk about Lian Bichsel's decision to return to Europe starting, I believe, tomorrow, and probably won't be coming back until the end of March, middle of March, something like that. And then we'll do a quarterly check-in on the Stars and the rest of the teams in the NHL and see what's going on with them. And then we'll end with our Who Cares segment for the evening, which it was not my idea. So if you don't like it, you can blame Chris and James for it because it was their idea.
Actually, you could blame only James. This is not my idea either.
It was still pretty good, though. It's okay. It's okay. All right. Anyways, two teams have fired their coach. Dean Nevison of the Wild is out, as well as the Edmonton Oilers firing their coach in Jay Woodcroft. They bring in John Hines for the Wild, and then for the Oilers, they bring in Chris Knobloch, I believe is his name. He was the junior coach of Connor McDavid. And then John Hines is no stranger to an NHL bench. He's the former NHL bench boss of the P-Cats, the Nashville Predators. So no surprise of him getting the job there. But two teams who are underperforming according to their general managers. The Oilers have kind of been up and down a little bit, more up than down. But the Wild have won 3 in a row since firing their coach. So what do you make of those situations there? Is it the right decision? What's y'all's thoughts on either one of those teams right now?
I don't know. I think the Wild are doing pretty good for how bad of a hockey team they have, honestly. I mean, they got 2 players who can score goals on that team. That's it. They got Zuccarello, and they got that Russian guy, who I forgot his name right now. Please help me.
Kaprizov.
Thank you, sir. And then after that, they're like, all right, we're just going to hit you and punch you in the face, and that's going to work. And obviously that doesn't work because no other teams in the entirety of the NHL are currently trying that. So it's not working. Crazy. And when your 2 scoring guys don't have crazy good career years, then you don't get any goals. Also, who would have thought? I think that's pretty obvious. And your goalie finally cools off. So you are no longer a wild card team. Instead, now you are what you actually should be, and you suck. Thumbs up.
I just don't know. I don't know about. I think the Wild decision was the right thing because yes, I agree with you, Chris, that they're still not that good. They should not be like that, but they shouldn't be this bad, right? And one of the arguments is you can't go out and fire 23 guys and get 23 new guys. So the easiest thing to do, like you have mentioned in the past, Chris, is just to fire the coach, just to kind of kick the guys in the pants and say, hey, you're next if you don't put it together.
I'm not saying it's the wrong decision. I'm just saying I don't think it'll do anything. This is kind of where I was expecting the Wild to be, and I think this is just the first step in them tearing down the terrible hockey team that they've built and trying to rebuild it around Kaprizov before he leaves.
Yeah, I mean they're kind of just handicapped by those buyouts that they had a couple years back.
Yep.
And I believe they will get out of those in 2025 or 2026. I forget which year it is. I thought it was earlier, but I guess not. Now on the other side, the Oilers have been playing a lot better as of late. And one of the things that I didn't agree with was them firing their coach there. I thought that was, I mean, it's not on the head. It wasn't on Woodcroft at all. He actually had a really good record with the team, and instead of the Wild firing their head coach was more of a kick in the pants to the players. It was a wake up call to the players. For the firing of the head coach in Edmonton, I think that was more of a move for Ken Holland to try and save his job. That's kind of how I feel about it. He has not done a good job, and especially the problem continues to be goaltending. Stuart Skinner cannot save a puck to save his own life, for lack of a better term. And they sent Campbell down to the AHL where, yeah, he's looked better. Like, there's some rumors that he's probably going to get called up here in a couple of days or so. But their third guy, Calvin Pickard, I guess they just don't trust him enough, which I find crazy, considering you can't trust any of your goaltending right now. At least give him a little bit more starts just to see if maybe he can save something and give you average goaltending, because that's all you really need. All you really need is average goaltending, and especially when Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are starting to pick up their point totals again. So, I mean,
I'm just not convinced that it's goaltending over there. I mean, if you look, they have 3 different goaltenders go in, and all 3 end up with the same save percentage over a span of like however many games. Like, that's not, at some point you have to say, okay, it's the defense, not the goaltending.
I think that's definitely part of it, James. But you also, if you're watching the goaltending, I feel like it's definitely not good enough either.
Well, look where the shots are coming from on most of their games. They're all in the slot. It feels like every team, every shot they take is in the shot.
The defense definitely sucks, but the goaltending is not helping, and that's where I think
they're feeding off of each other. That's the worst
yes,
part. I mean,
that is 100% it.
They're both bad, and they're just digging deeper and deeper into the hole.
I think that hits the nail on the head. But I think really when you have such a top-heavy team like this, all you're looking for is for a goalie to get hot for 1 year. Like, if you have it, like Ryan said, if you have a decent goalie with the forward group that they have a chance. And that's what happened the year they went to the conference final. They got decent goaltending, and that was all they needed. They needed a couple saves here and there, and they could win a game 6-5. And they're not getting anywhere close to that right now. So they have bad defense. I think that's going to be a given for this team, unless they get rid of one of McDavid or Draisaitl. So they got to try and compensate with some goaltending, but it's not working out.
Which, honestly, that might happen, especially if Draisaitl is the first one with his contract up. I mean, I think he's up not this summer, but next summer. And if you go and you're not even in the playoffs this year, if I'm Draisaitl, I want out, and I'm not re-signing with you. I mean, you have 2 guys who are literally the 2 best players of their generation, and they've been 1 and 2 in the scoring race for like 5 years, basically. And you can't win a Stanley Cup with them. And you don't surround people. I mean, you don't even have to have like amazing guys around those 2 guys. They just have to have
decent guys.
adequate defense, adequate goaltending. And that would probably win you a Stanley Cup with the 2 best players in the world.
Yeah,
and they haven't been able to do that.
You talked about how bad of a job their GM has done. He's probably, like, if you think about it, he's probably done the worst job of any GM in the NHL. He had the 2 best players in the league fall into his hands. I mean, and the team still is terrible. That's pretty inexcusable. That's a pretty terrible job. It's a miracle he still has his job. If they don't make the playoffs, he'll be fired. I'm pretty sure.
And that brings me into my next question, because Ardell over here talking about Bill Guerin being on the hot seat. I don't think he's on the hot seat because he's ingrained himself so much into that Minnesota Wild organization. He's signed players to long-term deals. If you're the Minnesota Wild organization ownership, you're just gonna dig in your heels and go with it, because you've given all of these guys long-term contracts. So that's my opinion on Bill Guerin, I don't think he's on the hot seat, to be honest with you. Now, Ken Holland, absolutely 100%. If you don't make the playoffs this year, you're fired. Maybe even if you make the playoffs as a wild card team and you get swept or you lose in the first round, I think you're fired. Either way, because that he has not done a good job with this team and surrounding those two guys, Draisaitl and McDavid, with the pieces that they need to succeed. He has not done that. Ken Holland has not.
Yeah, I think Guerin should be on the hot seat, but he's not. I agree. But he should be.
I really don't think he's done that bad a job, to be honest with you, because he's got some decent players, but
you mean two? He does have two good players. You're right.
Marco Rossi is still pretty good too. It's taken him a while to come around, and he's a first line center now. He's done pretty well, but
I think that Wild team is really bad. I think it's much worse than you're saying. I don't think they're playing bad. Is honestly what I'm saying. I don't think the Wild team is playing below their level. I think this is their level, is 8-10 so far this season. I just think it's not a good hockey team.
See, I don't agree with that. I think they're better than the record says. Now, are they a premier contender in the NHL right now? No, absolutely not. But I mean, they have to be better than 8-10. They have to be better than 8-10. That's just my opinion, and that's fair. That's fair. And I can absolutely you see why you would say that. Okay. We got to talk about let's move on to the next thing, because this thing kind of blew out of proportion, kind of came out of nowhere, was ridiculous. And the whole Corey Perry situation. We still don't have any details about it. It was like 2 weeks ago that they pulled him out of the lineup, and they said it was an organizational decision. And then there comes some rumors coming out that there was some inappropriate conduct. There was a statement released by the Blackhawks, and apparently it was bad enough to the point that it was enough to terminate his contract. So he is no longer a member of the Chicago Blackhawks, which is crazy to me. The fact that whatever it is caused him to lose his job.
Perry released a statement, and he was talking about how it was about alcohol abuse. So that is most likely that's what happens. He showed up somewhere drunk.
Yeah, that would be my guess too. And it reminded me a lot of the Jim Montgomery situation and why he lost his job. It felt the exact same way. So I don't think it was as bad as some people were trying to make it out to be. Obviously, there's nothing criminal involved, which is good, because I do like Corey Perry as a person, and he was a good player for the Stars while he was here. It just really sucks about the situation there in Chicago and how he lost his job and stuff. Any thoughts on the whole Corey Perry situation? And
yeah, a lot more of the hullabaloo was coming from the fact that the Chicago Blackhawks were the organization saying that this player acted immorally, like the most immoral organization with their whole scandal and attempted cover-up as well. So that's kind of what sent it berserk. And then, of course, just fully unfounded rumors, which it's kind of hilarious how everyone just started a rumor just because. It's kind of funny. But then it did obviously go a little bit too far. So, but yeah, just a weird situation.
Just for me, it went way too far. Way too far. And I mean, it, and honestly, this is kind of within the same realm of this context, but Connor Bedard was asked a question about those rumors in Winnipeg, like not even like 2 days after Corey Perry was let go by the team and his contract was terminated. And I was like, dude, I understand you're trying to do your job and ask questions about that and try and find stuff, but can you give the kid a little bit of a break?
No,
it's not like he's a 30-year-old. He's 18. He is younger than all of us. He is 18 years old.
It doesn't even matter his age. It's bad reporting to ask a question about a rumor that has no foundation. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a big rumor or not. It's a stupid to ask a question about something that has no foundation.
And I had no dog in the fight, and it ticked me off, the fact that question was even asked. And you could see that Bedard was obviously hacked off about the question as well. But hats off to him. He still answered the question. I would have been like, just no comment. I want you out of here. See you later.
Yeah, I would have gone clown joke on him. That's a clown joke, bro.
Yeah. So, but anyway, the whole
Moving on.
situation. Yeah, the whole situation was sucked. It's terrible. Hopefully, Corey Perry gets the help that he needs, and we never have to hear something about this again. Okay. While we were away and not doing these hour-long episodes, excuse me. Patrick Kane finally made his decision, and he has signed with the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings. The Red Wings. Sorry, I'm tired.
It's
The Red
like
Wings.
Baby. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's almost like my baby's had a fever like last night or something like that, and kept me up late or something. But anyway, so all of the rumors kind of go out the door with him coming to Dallas, which is kind of a nice thing. We talked about this for a long time. It actually seemed like and not some of the rumors I saw, that his preferred destination was actually Dallas, but there was no room for him with the contract that he signed. There's no way that the Dallas would have been able to afford that. He signed for $2.75 million, which prorated for the season, since he's missed the first 20 games of the season, it's a little over $2 million. So there's no way Dallas would have been able to afford that. But what do you think about his decision to go to the Red Wings? Because he talked about the fact that he wanted to go to a Stanley Cup contender. Obviously, he had to balance that with money. Obviously, money always has to be a decision here. But do you really think that the Red Wings are a playoff team this year, and that they give him a chance to win the Stanley Cup this year?
Well, I kind of want to take this from the other side. I think it's a great deal for the Red Wings. Man, you're having me doing it too. The Red Wings is a great move for them. I mean, they get
the
some,
Red Rings. The Red Rings.
The Red Rings, yes.
The
Great
wedding
deal for
rings?
the Red Rings. And because they add the you frazzled me. They add the playoff talent, or the playoff experience, that their team doesn't really have. And the team has definitely taken a jump to the start of this year. And if they can get Kane to come in and kind of be a solid backbone, something that the younger players can kind of lean back on and to push them forward when they get in their slumps, that would be exceptional for them to keep this momentum going throughout the rest of the year, stay in one of those top 3 spots in the Atlantic. And I mean, that's the best division. I mean, if they can do good there, they're lining up for a good chance in the playoffs, really.
Yeah, and it works out because Kane already knows some players on the team as well. I mean, so it all kind of, he has familiar faces there. It's an up and coming team who could kind of have, I mean, this is kind of what you're looking at with New Jersey last year. You're looking at maybe a Cinderella run deep into the playoffs. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, but the difference between the Devils and the Red Wings is you could see early on that the Devils were going to be a top team in their division. I mean, I think that was 17 games in a row early on
really
that they won.
Start.
A really crazy hot start, and then they still were above 500 for the rest of the season. The Red Wings haven't really done that. I mean, they've been good. Don't get me wrong, they've been good, and they've got a good goalie rotation going through with their 3 guys, and they're a lot better than they have been the past half decade, 7 years, however long it's been. But does he really get them over the hump? Because he doesn't make them a Stanley Cup contender. He doesn't. But does he make them a playoff contender? Maybe. I'll give him that.
I think their start to the season alone makes them a playoff contender. I mean, we knew with New Jersey that their hot streak was kind of a one-off thing too. Same with Seattle as well. They got off to a really good streak, and we were kind of like, this doesn't really look sustainable. With what Detroit is doing right now, it definitely looks and feels sustainable. It's not like they're just going on a crazy hot streak or scoring bunches of goals and somehow outpacing their poor defense. It looks like they've got all the tools, and like you said, it's not contender level yet, but it's coming together this year is what it feels like. It's the coming together of really a good hockey team, not just a flash in the pan, is what it feels like. So that's why I think this is a little bit different than maybe if you went to New Jersey or something.
Now, looking at the division, when you look at the Atlantic, maybe I need to eat my weird words a little bit. Man, I'm having a hard time speaking tonight. They're third in their division right now. They're 13-7-3. So that's better than I thought they were at. And I was just doing it based off of what I'd heard from YouTube, from other influences within the hockey world. But they're third in their division right now, and right now they're above the Maple Leafs, who were supposed to win the division, according to a lot of people, including myself.
Ryan.
So, yeah, I'm owning up to it. So, I mean, maybe I need to eat my words a little bit. Looking at some of the other stats that they've got, they're 6-2-2 in their last 10, so exactly like the Stars in their last 10 games. And the thing that's really interesting is they have scored the most goals than any other team in their division. They've got 86. And I believe the Stars are at 79. So they've scored more goals than the Stars have, which is, that's really interesting considering that you're just now adding a guy who can absolutely score goals. He's probably more of a setup guy now. He's a great passer. But maybe that makes them a little bit more dangerous than I was originally thinking, guys.
Yeah, and I think the bigger thing more so is the veteran presence that he gives, which the Red Wings don't have. And now they do have that, which I think is important when you're going into the playoffs.
So where do you think that, let's make a prediction and then close this part of the segment. Where do you think this puts them at the end of the season? Are they top 3, or are they wild card, or are they out?
I think they're pushing for a top 3, but I think they're going to end up with the number 1 wild card.
That's kind of what I'm assuming too, honestly.
I think I'm gonna give them a wild card spot as well. I don't think they're out of the playoffs. I also agree with you, Chris. I think they'll push for a top 3 and they might get number 3, but I just don't see the Maple Leafs getting a wild card instead of the Red Wings. So, but again, we'll see. We've seen crazier things this year with this NHL. So, okay. Anyways, we got a lot of Calgary Flames stuff to talk about because one, for some reason, the Stars can't seem to defeat this team, yet this team seems to be in all of the trade rumors because it looks like they're going to tear everything down. So we got to discuss this. Obviously, the first domino fell with Nikita Zadorov being traded to Vancouver. Everyone's freaking out, guys. He's not a top 4 defenseman. He is definitely an NHL defenseman, but he's best suited for a third pairing defenseman. So there were some Dallas Stars people, some fans who were saying, "Oh, we should have gotten him for that." And I'm like, I mean, there were some people saying he was going to get like a first round pick when he got traded. I was like, no, absolutely not. I think they traded him for a 3rd and a 5th, and that's what they got. So, but the other thing is Calgary has, if you go and look at Chris Johnson, who is actually now a writer for The Athletic. That's a new job that he just recently got. On his trade board that he just recently released, at the top, he's got 4 players that are all from the Calgary Flames. So it's crazy to think that a team that possibly has been doing better lately, who actually might have a chance at like a wild card, and 4 of their guys are on top of Chris Johnson's trade board. So let's put it at this. Do you think that the Stars would go after any of those guys that are talked about? Whether it be, Hannafin, Tanev, which seems to be a really popular one right now with a lot of people around the league, or even Elias Lindholm or anything like that. What do you think about all of this news coming around the Calgary Flames?
I think they'd be crazy not to go after a defenseman, and it seems like the majority of the solid defense guys that can play a 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of role are those Calgary guys that we were talking about. But it's going to be tough for the Stars to get a guy like that, just because we're going to have them retain something. The Stars have no space. There's no space left, or we have to trade somebody away, which is definitely not what we want to do when we have what we feel like is a really good team. But when we get to our next segment about Lundkvist, and how much or little he is trusted right now with this coaching staff, it feels like we have to get something to be a number 6 guy at least.
Who would you rather like to see if the Stars do go after somebody from Calgary? Because in my mind, it's got to be a defenseman. It's not Lindholm. Lindholm's not coming to the Stars because we just don't have room for that. But the whole Noah Hannafin one is kind of interesting to me. But I also think he wants to be someplace for long term. So I don't think that's an option for the Stars. I don't think they want to have somebody on the books for a really long time. They've already got Essa, and they've already got Mira Heiskanen for a long term. But the Chris Tanev one really actually it intrigues me a lot. But if it intrigues me a lot, it intrigues a lot of other people a lot as well. So a trade for Tanev would be my personal opinion, the better move by Jim Nill. But since we're talking about it, Jim Nill's not going to do it. He's going to have something else up his sleeve that he's not going to talk about for the longest time, and we'll be surprised when he makes a move for a defenseman.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Tanev would be the best option of the guys from Calgary, especially after the game he played against us the other night. He looked fantastic.
Yeah, what's kind of crazy to me is that between all the people on the Flames, I still see Lindholm as a more likely option to get on our team than any other defenseman that people are talking about.
So that's interesting.
Because you trade Foxa the other way, and the cap stuff kind of works out a little bit, and it makes sense at least a little bit for Calgary if you send stuff back the other direction.
Yeah, but the only problem is that you've got it. If you're Dallas, you don't need offense.
Yeah,
anymore.
but if you're saying Lindholm for Foxa specifically, I mean, you're taking that, right?
Yeah, but Lindholm also wants an extension for a really long time for outrageous money compared to what we can get.
James is saying a
rental that at all, though. Like,
yeah, James wants a rental
specifically.
Yeah,
okay,
and
rental makes more sense.
I think on paper, James, I think you're right, but what the coaching staff and what the franchise likes in Dallas is they like Foxa. That's kind of their guy.
Yeah,
like no,
I agree. I just think getting him is more likely than getting either of the other two defensemen, because I mean they're gonna have
there's gonna be so much
retain
demand
on the other side,
guys.
and you're gonna have to give a lot more than you're willing to.
Yeah, I agree, and that's kind of Ardell's comment there is kind of what not what I was thinking. So one of y'all brought it up, but Bichsel, however you say his name, him coming back late in the year and doing the exact same thing as Thomas Harley is a very viable option, I think, even still with him going to Europe. What a nice segue.
So let's go ahead and move into that, shall we? So Lian Bichsel, it comes out that he has made the decision to return to Europe. He has that ability to. He has a clause in his contract that allows him to do so. So there was a lot of for those, maybe I should put it this way first. For those of you who don't know who Lian Bichsel is a first-round pick from 2022 or 2021. I forget which one it is. He's a very young guy, but he's a very promising guy. Like, he's huge. He's like 6'5", 230, 220, something like that. And he being seen as a puck-moving guy. He can skate really well. And there is even some speculation as to whether he would even make the Stars this year. There were some scouts that even said, if he was a prospect for some of the lower teams in the NHL, like, in Anaheim or Chicago or something like that, he would have been on their roster this season. Like right now, he would be on the NHL roster this season. But because of the depth that the Stars have when it comes to some of their prospects on both sides, forward and defense, and we have good depth all across the organization. That's hats off to Jim Nill for that. But a lot of people were upset at his decision to go back to Europe because there's a lot of people that say, like over here, Ardell saying it sucks he went back to Europe. There's a softer game over there. Max Fortunas, who is one of the assistant coaches for the Texas Stars, helped Bichsel in Cedar Park. So, I don't know how you guys feel about it. I'll let y'all talk about your feelings about this first, and then I'll let y'all know how I feel about it. But what's your feelings on his decision to go back to Europe?
It's definitely super interesting. First off, on a human level, he's how old is he? 19, 18? He's somewhere around there. And he is trying to play professional hockey in a brand new country for the first time ever. I mean, that is a huge culture shock, a huge just mental, emotional toll on you.
And this is not like a Canada to United States thing, because
yeah, this is much bigger stuff.
That's not as big a change as it is from literally overseas to coming over here. I mean, it's very different for those guys.
Yeah, I bet he does speak some English, but probably not super well either. But yeah, overall, as a person, it's a tough thing to do. But as for his career wise, he probably, if he had stayed here and if there was an injury on defense, he would have been the next one up. So he's pretty much sacrificing an NHL debut to go back and play in Sweden, which is, or where's he going? Finland?
That's Sweden.
I don't know. Sweden? Yeah. So
Sweden.
He's sacrificing a lot to go back home. And like I said, human element, that makes sense. Professionally, that's a risk.
I mean, part of the issue right now is like, even if we wanted to call him up, someone would have to get hurt for an extended period of time, not just get hurt for a week or two.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough to, when you're not playing in the top league, you're playing in the AHL, and yes, it's still a very, very tough league. But I mean, he can go play in the SHL and kind of get at least some of the same. I mean, he's playing against older people in the SHL. That's the like, he's not going back to like a junior league. That's kind of the nice thing about it. But
yeah, it's definitely better than if he was playing in a junior league. I agree with that. But I think Ardell's point of the different ice is definitely a big deal, I think. And just not being with the organization that's trying to develop you is also a big deal.
Part of it for me too is like, he's going to be back in March. It's like, it's 5 months. Like, yes, it's tough, but like, he's likely he is not going to play. I mean, regardless, he's likely not going to play in the NHL. And in terms of like mental for that, yeah, I kind of would want to be back home. So
yeah,
fully see it.
It would be a much bigger risk this year to bring up Bichsel at the end of the year, same way as Harley, than it was for Harley. Harley kind of, we knew he was, or
you could tell he was ready.
Jim Nill knew he was ready. He knew he had that ace in his sleeve. This one, it's kind of like, it could be an ace, it could be a 2. We're not for sure. So much riskier.
I think a lot of people were upset by his decision, but guys, I mean, we talked about it at the top of this. I think this is more of a really young kid who feels like he doesn't have a shot to make the big leagues, and he just wants to go back home. That's really what I think it boils down to. I don't think this is, and I really don't think this is such a big deal as some people are making it out to be. I think some people are overanalyzing this and saying that this is going to hurt his development and it's going to inhibit his ability to make the NHL sooner. If he's a good player, he's a good player, and he's going to make the NHL. That's just bottom line what's going to happen, no matter how he does it. Is the ice different? Yes. But there are lots of players who have been able to deal with that transition very easily. Kaprizov is a perfect example of that. He was in the KHL for years, and everyone was like, oh, well, he's going to come over and he's going to really suck it up. Well, he didn't. And he's been the Wild's best player for 3 years now. So I think it's too early to freak out about this.
Yeah.
It's literally a kid who wants to go back home. That's all it is. That's what I'm bringing it down towards.
Yeah, I agree. It is just still because he's our number 8 defenseman is really what it is. If there was an extended injury, someone goes on the injury reserve, he would have been in, and he would have been played probably too over Hanley. So it's an interesting decision. It's weird.
Well, that's interesting to look at. I wonder if there would be anybody else who would get called up above him. I need to look at Cap Friendly real quick and see.
And that might have been another discussion that was had. Like maybe he was looking at it and he was like, yeah, I would stay if I would get called up if there was an injury, and they might have told me, hey, we're not going to call you up. We want you to be developed further before we even really give you a shot up there. And maybe that led him to making that decision. The Stars were ready for that too, and they want to make sure he's developed before trying to bring him in, which is fair as well. We just don't know those behind the scenes conversations, and I think those kind of have a lot more ramification on this than we really give it credit for. It's not like he just called up Jim Nill and said, hey, I'm going back to Sweden. I bet there's a lot more discussion than just that.
Yes. You know, I'm looking at the depth chart for the Stars right now, and there are some other guys that I think would get called up before he would. Now, is he playing more minutes than some of the guys that would get called up first at the Texas Stars level? Then yes, I think he is. He would be. But I mean, you've still got Gavin Bayreuther, who is a fringe NHL defenseman. He is a fill-in. That is exactly what he is. You've got Petrovic as well, who is 31 years of age down there. And then you've even got Derek Pouliot, former Oiler, who also could be in there as a fill-in, though. Oh, Ardell's telling me that Gavin Bayreuther was hurt. Okay. Well, either way, I still think that Pouliot or especially Petrovic would get called up before Bichsel would, if we were really that desperate.
I don't agree with that, but whatever.
That's fair. No, that's fair.
I don't think you would call up. I feel like you'd rather call up somebody who has potential to make the NHL than someone who's going to play their career in the AHL. I mean, we've seen Petrovic up when we've needed him. He has played with us before, I believe, hasn't he? Maybe that was just preseason. So. I can't remember.
I think it's just preseason.
But he's an AHL guy. So I think there's much more upside of giving someone a shot, especially when we're solidly in a playoff spot and stuff like that. So,
well, that's just how I feel on the whole thing with Bichsel. But anything else about Bichsel?
It is interesting.
It is very interesting, though. It's a very interesting thing to talk about. Okay, moving on from that, we need to talk about something that James brought up to us right before we were going to come on to air, and it's actually very interesting. So, James, our statistician, you want to give us your statistician stuff that you were talking to us about?
So I was looking at penalties drawn again because last year around this time, I don't know if y'all remember, but our power play was really, really good, and we were not getting any calls. And turns out this year we're not getting very many calls either. I think for penalties drawn, we're like bottom 5, bottom 10. And that's for a team that is 5th in the league and skates like crazy fast. Has Roope Hintz. I don't know how many penalties Roope Hintz has drawn, but it definitely hasn't been as much as it looks like.
Yeah, I think Mason Marchment's number one when it comes to drawing calls, but I would put Roope Hintz up there too, just based off of his speed alone. I think he draws a lot of calls for the team. But I mean, this is something that I went into last year. I did an article about this specific thing last year, actually, and talking about whether it was something to do with DeBoer's system, since it was a new system. Maybe that's why, we weren't getting any of the calls or anything like that. But that wasn't the case looking at the numbers. Is the fact that, if anything, it was actually quite the opposite. When you look at DeBoer coach teams in the past, they've been top 10 in the NHL when it comes to drawing calls. So here's what I'm putting it up to. What I'm putting it up to is still that, other than last game, I think the Stars are not pressing enough, and they're not getting enough offensive zone pressure. That's kind of what I'm thinking why we don't get enough calls right now. And eventually it kind of evened itself out last year. I think we were in the middle by the end of the year, but especially at the beginning of the season, James, you were exactly right. It was very similar situation to that.
I kind of chalk it up to it's going to swing back the other way, just like it did last year. And when that happens, hopefully we'll get a bunch of really good power play goals and we can just have some free games for it. But we'll see.
It's still annoying. It sucks. And you can
it's
definitely
still
feel
annoying.
The past 5 games has felt bad.
And maybe it's just me, but has it felt like the power play has not been as dominant this year as it was last year?
The
Especially at the
last
beginning.
couple of
Definitely.
games, it has been.
That's definitely true
That's
to the
part
start,
of.
but it's played a lot better recently, and it's played better, and we're not getting chances. I mean, the past
But
5
I
games, I
think
think the other team has had more power plays.
I think in the span since the weekend where we scored the 1 power play goal against Winnipeg and then like the 4 against Minnesota, I think we're like second in the league in that span in power play percentage.
That's crazy. We did jump from like, weren't we like 28th or 29th?
We were like 28th, and now we sit like almost. I think we're back up in the 10s.
Like top, not the top 10, but like upper teens, like 11, 12, 13, 14, something like that.
No, we are sitting 10th right
We're
now.
10th.
That's stupid. That's crazy. Just goes to show you how crazy that one Minnesota game was. But okay, anyways, I think that will be corrected itself, but we'll see how that goes. Interesting over here, Ardell. We don't get enough calls because the refs are poor. I've heard Bruce Levine say there's a lot of young officials in the league. And that kind of makes sense. Now that I'm thinking about it, there have been a lot of officials in years past, especially the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, that have retired. So that's I could see that being something that could
We need
be
some
called into
investigative
question.
reporting out there.
Right.
The problem is like there's a difference between the officiating being poor and the officiating being poor for one specific team.
Yeah, that's what
That's
we're
the
talking about.
difference. I mean, it feels like within games right now, it's like the refs are against the Stars. Like in the Lightning game, the penalties were like what 5-2,
Yeah.
and we won the game 8-1.
Yeah. How does the top 5 team in the league be the one that draws the least amount of calls? How does the top 10 offense draw the least amount of calls?
It's weird.
Makes no sense.
All across the board, honestly.
Hey, James, who are the other teams at the bottom of that category when it comes to like minor penalties drawn or whatever?
Pittsburgh, Washington, the New York Islanders, Toronto Maple Leafs, St. Louis. That's the bottom 6.
So nobody
Dallas are
close to
third
as good
worst.
as us.
Well, all of those teams are playoff. Well, are either
No, they're
playoff
not.
teams? Yes, Washington is.
I think
Toronto is.
all
Right,
sit in
the
the
Islanders
playoffs
are.
Look at
spot
the
right
standings
now.
recently.
It's really weird right now. None of the penalty stats make sense.
Fair enough. So I thought that was interesting, James. That was a very interesting stat to bring up. I'm glad you got that. So
And it allowed us to complain about the referees, our favorite thing to do.
yes, one of our favorite things to do. Because the refs are always right. Anyways, moving on. Nils Lundkvist. It seems like we talk about this quite a bit, even on our AGRs. The Saad came out with an article for The Athletic and talking about Nils Lundkvist. And the whole Nils Lundkvist thing is baffling to me. Some argue and say he's not getting enough ice time. Some argue and say that he's having to play with players that are not as good as he is, and that's why he's struggling. But Saad came out and said that this scratching by DeBoer of Nils Lundkvist felt different than what it was last season. So like Nils Lundkvist didn't play at all, basically the last month of the season. And then he never touched the ice in the playoffs because Thomas Harley got called up. So do you agree with him? And what's the deal with Lundkvist at this point?
What did Saad mean by different?
That's interesting. But he just said it felt like this is he's not like trying to develop anymore. He's trying to be a regular in the lineup.
So here's my problem with Lundkvist right now. This is his 3rd year where he's started the season on an NHL team. First time is with New York. He played how many games? 25 games. And then they took him out and they put him in the AHL for the rest of the season. And then last season with Dallas, 3 separate times he hit the 20-game mark and fell off a cliff. And he comes in this season, hits the 20-game mark, and falls off a cliff. Like, what? I don't know. I don't understand. Is there like a mental block there, or what's going on?
The problem I have with still not playing. So when we trade for Lundkvist, we knew exactly what we were doing. We were saying, hey, this guy's pretty much a first round pick. We want to develop him like he's a first round pick, and he would be better than what we would get at the end of the first round, which is what we would have done. The problem is with just treating him like he's a normal regular in the lineup, and if he's bad, okay, well, we're just going to take him out. Is you're not developing him anymore. When you signed his contract to be one way, he's an NHLer. You still have to develop him. I mean, we knew that going into it. So the fact that, yes, he hasn't been playing good enough, especially the past, I'd say 5 to 8 games. He hasn't been good enough. You still have to play him because you have to develop him. He's not going to develop on the bench. So you either find a way to get him to the AHL, which isn't going to happen, or you play him, even if he's not the best option. And I think, especially when the team is as good as it is, you still have to get him in the lineup. You have to develop him as a player. That's the only way we're going to be able to get a full defensive core is with Lundkvist playing well, and we have to find a way to get him to play well. And not playing him isn't going to do it. If this is a one-time sit in timeout, then sure, I get it. But I think we need Lundkvist for this team to be as good as it can be.
One of the things he talked about in the article, guys, is the fact that he's been taking a lot of penalties as of late. That was one of the things that Saad mentioned in the article. And you could look at Hakanpää especially and say he takes a lot of penalties as well, right? But the problem with Lundkvist, at least from Pete DeBoer's standpoint, is it seems like there's nothing to counteract those penalties and those bad play, right? For Hakanpää, he's one of the best penalty killing defensemen in the NHL. I mean, that's why the Stars have the second best penalty kill in the NHL, is partly because of him and partly because of Esa. So one of the things that the article was saying is just the fact that Lundkvist is taking too many penalties, and not just taking too many penalties, but taking penalties at the wrong time.
Yes, and I 100% agree. I think he has not been good enough, and I agree with that totally. If he was a normal 28-year-old defenseman who should be good, I agree with you 100%. But we signed him with a one-way deal. We knew what we were getting into. We knew he wasn't a fully formed NHL defenseman, and we still signed him to an NHL contract where we can't send him down. I feel like if you're going to do that, if you're going to take that risk, you have to take some of the punishment. I mean, I get the idea that we need to try and win every game, and I agree with that to a point, and that point is Lundkvist. I think with Lundkvist, you have to do it a little differently, at least until he's proven that he absolutely can't. Which maybe that's Pete DeBoer's line, because he has played 5 to 8 games not playing well, and maybe that's final straw. And in which case, that's fair, but you just cost yourself a first round draft pick for nothing at that point. And I think you got to keep him down. You either keep him down or you keep playing him. Is what I'm going to say is my final point.
The only other thing as to why people are all frustrated about the fact that Nils Lundkvist is not getting enough playing time is exactly what you mentioned, Chris, is the amount that Jim Nils spent to get him, right? He spent a first round draft pick, and that's insane because Jim Nils doesn't part with his first round draft picks, right? Like ever. I think that's the only time in the time he's been with the Stars, which has been almost a decade, that he's traded a first round draft pick for basically a prospect that may or may not make it, right? So that's why a lot of people are frustrated. But you also have to look, and this is something they mentioned in the article, you have to look at it from Pete DeBoer's standpoint. Last year, I would understand your argument, Chris, because the Stars were expected to make the playoffs, but they were in that second tier of teams, right? There are second tier teams that they could make some damage in the playoffs, and a lot of people viewed them as such. They didn't view them as like a Stanley Cup contender, but they were definitely there. They're definitely a playoff team. This year is different. You go to the Final Four in the playoffs last year. You get talked about all offseason about how great of a team you are, how much of a Stanley Cup contender you are. And at this point, your job, if you're Pete DeBoer, is to win games. You are not a development coach.
Yeah.
Like say the Arizona Coyotes are.
And
Okay, which Ardell mentioned. So there is a certain line that falls between at this point. That line did not exist last season. That line exists now, and Pete DeBoer found that line. Lundkvist is behind it. Okay, you're scratched. I'm putting in Hanley.
And that's a really good point, kind of showing the difference between Jim Nils' job versus Pete DeBoer's job. I mean, Jim Nils makes that trade trying to make the best hockey team possible. And if Lundkvist pans out, it's an amazing move. And Jim Nils probably pushing Pete DeBoer to keep playing him. But that's not Pete DeBoer's job. Pete DeBoer's job is to win hockey games right now. And I think that's a really good point, Ryan. And you're kind of making me lean towards that side. But what that really is making me do is say, okay, then we get rid of Lundkvist. Like, for cash considerations is what I'm saying. I mean, what's the point of keeping Lundkvist on the team if he's not good enough to be played? He's just taking up cap space at that point. It's kind of where my new opinion lies.
The other thing is that's kind of helpful for Lundkvist is with Bichsel leaving and going back to the SHL and going back to Europe, there's not really another guy that you can look at and say is better than Lundkvist. Like as good as Petrovic probably is, and as good as Poyat is, as fill-in guys, I still don't think they're better than Nils Lundkvist up at the.
I agree with that. I think
Stars level.
I think in that case, that's when you're looking at when there's the opportunity to do the three-way trade, then you do it. So you get rid of Lundkvist to try and make more cap space for whatever other defenseman you're bringing in. That's kind of where I'm getting to. What I just don't want to do is I don't want us to keep Lundkvist and pretend that he's going to get better by not playing, which is what I kind of feel like happens. So you kind of convinced me that he shouldn't be playing. Then we need to get rid of him, is my opinion. But I hate that because I like Lundkvist.
So okay, Ardell again. So do you think we need to cut our losses? Is this another honka?
And that's what sucks. Is like, I think he will be a good NHL player, but your point, Ryan, which you have swayed me towards, is that it doesn't matter for us if he will be a good NHL player. What matters for us is he a good NHL player right now? And the answer to that's no.
We're in our window right now where we need to be winning. And a majority of the time. Sorry, go ahead.
Maybe you test the waiver market and you try and get him down there. And if it doesn't work,
he's not going to get through. There's no way he makes it through.
I agree. But I don't think he should be on the NHL roster if he's not going to play.
And maybe that's a risk you're willing to take to free up some cap space so that you can go after a guy like Chris Tanev, I guess. Maybe that's something you could look at eventually later in the season. But
that's kind of where you convinced
that's interesting. So
that it's even weirder situation now in my head. Thanks a lot, Ryan.
Yeah, we did not make it any better. We just made ourselves more confused.
Much worse.
Okay, all right. Let's get to our Who Cares segment for the evening, guys. James, this was your idea, so why don't you go ahead and introduce it and tell it to our people on the internet here what we're going to be talking about for our top 3 Who Cares.
We are doing condiment packets, but specifically like the little squeezable ones. So not like the little containers. So Chick-fil-A sauce out of here, barbecue sauce out of here.
And that's the big one that gets eliminated. All Chick-fil-A sauces being eliminated is a key feature, at least for me, because they would all be top 3.
Which is why I specified the packets.
Okay. All right. Well, James, it's your idea. So you started us off number 3.
My number 3, I'm going to go with soy sauce packets.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I suddenly really started liking white rice for no reason, and soy sauce is absolutely amazing with white rice. So
no way. James likes bland food.
That's a shocker.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Chris, your number 3?
Okay. I have to preface this.
Okay.
Whataburger is still better, but my number 3 is In-N-Out spread packets.
I've never had that.
Oh, it's so good. I like me some In-N-Out. This is also, it takes me to another hot take. So the Patty Melt, best fast food burger, but a double is better than a double meat Whataburger. And that's very controversial. And I definitely feel like less of a Texan for that take, but that brings back around to In-N-Out sauce packet being number 3rd. Ryan, number 3rd.
I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit. I am going to Chick-fil-A, but I'm not doing any Chick-fil-A sauces. I'm doing their ketchup packets. Their ketchup packets are my number 3.
My guy just said
because-
Heinz ketchup, but somehow snuck Chick-fil-A in there.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
It's
But-
Heinz ketchup.
It's nice because those packets are a lot bigger, and I don't know. It's my number 3. I like it.
That's
Go for it.
a travesty.
So
It's not a travesty.
My number 2 is the salsa from Sonic because it reminds me of, the little breakfast tacos and stuff, breakfast burritos.
The junior breakfast burritos that used to be
exactly
$1
with the salsas. I mean, perfect.
Which it was picante, not just the normal hot sauce. That one's pretty good.
Chris, your number 2?
My number 2. Okay, this one is in a very specific situation. So you go. Okay, so you're on a drive. There's no Buc-ee's. No Buc-ee's is around. So you're in immediate need of a gas station. The more frequent version and smaller version of the Buc-ee's is the Quick Trip. Gotta love the Quick Trip. You stop into the Quick Trip, you get your go-to snack of a watermelon Red Bull, a buffalo chicken and cheese stick, and a chicken taquito. And with that, you go to their condiment little section, and they get the little packets of Cholula hot sauce, the flavorful hot sauce with the iconic wooden cap. And you put that in the chicken taquito, and it makes it gourmet. It makes it wonderful. Cholula hot sauce.
Okay. So that
I get
was a
Cholula
long.
hot sauce in my fridge. It's the flavorful hot sauce with the iconic wooden cap.
All right, I'll give it to you. Trying to think of my number. I'll just give this as my number 2. My number 2, it's not anything special or anything. It's just the fire sauce from Taco Bell. I love the fire sauce. You can put the fire sauce with anything. I eat it with the tacos, with my quesadillas, anything, and it makes it taste better. So I love the fire sauce. That's my
Taco
number
sauce
2.
with tacos. Riveting. James, number first.
All right, so my number 1st is my only basic one. It is just it's a honey packet. Okay, I really like honey. I use it as a dessert whenever I don't get anything sweet.
You're just shooting honey packets?
I'm shooting honey packets. That's all I'm saying. I mean, honey's so good, man. I don't know what else to say.
Do you have honey packet in your pocket right now?
Okay,
Like emergency honey packet?
No, but I do have some like in my kitchen, like 3 steps over.
Okay, hold on. So, are we all so white that like when we go to like a Mexican restaurant and we have like extra tortillas that we put honey and butter on those tortillas and eat?
No, I don't do that, Ryan.
Only the ones from Rosa's. The Rosa's tortillas, yes, I will do.
Yes, okay, that's specifically what I was talking about, is at Rosa's especially. So I do that all the time at Rosa's because they always give you like, is it like 6 or 7 tortillas no matter what you get?
They give me a bag of them and I eat them.
Yes, I love it.
I go to Rosa's. I'm going to Rosa's tomorrow. That settles it. All right.
Yep, we had Rosa's today. So.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
I got to find where mine is. I don't know. No, moving on. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. My number 1st is Taco Bell Diablo sauce. I think does everyone know? Y'all might not know. Taco Bell, obviously my favorite fast food restaurant. It is outstanding due to also its price and deliciousness of said foods and new items, which I am a sucker for. If you got something new, if it's on a sign in the window, I'm getting it every time, every single time.
Especially at Taco Bell.
I've had the McRib, and I don't like it very much. They bring it back, they put it on the side. All right,
and you still buy it.
Buddy. That's just what happens. I mean, I can't control it. The McRib just teleports from the sign to my mouth. Is what occurs. Anyway, back to Taco Bell. Diablo sauce.
Hold on 1 second. What? Okay, so tell like Lizzie, as a Hispanic, we love butter tortillas with honey too. Okay, I'm glad it's not just a white person thing. Okay,
let's go.
I'm glad it's not just a white person thing. Sorry, Chris. Continue.
Diablo sauce, better than fire sauce. It's got the smokier flavor. It's hotter, which I enjoy, and you need that to kind of cut through the super rich 88% beef Taco Bell beef, and it's got to get through the fakeness and the oatmeal that's in there. And the Diablo sauce
makes it slide down better.
Oh yeah, it makes it slide down smooth and nice, and it like really propels it out the other end as well. I'm done.
See, I knew exactly what I was doing when I said it. I was allowing Chris to continue with his grossness there. Yes. Okay. Anyways, again, someone already put my number one already in the comments. I'm cheating again because you tried to get Chick-fil-A here. There's actually sauce at Chick-fil-A that does not come in one of those little containers, James. And it's the honey roasted barbecue sauce that they have in the packets. It is absolutely my favorite sauce in the packets. Now, if I was going to Chick-fil-A, I would be getting Chick-fil-A sauce or any of those other things. But for the sake of this argument, honey roasted barbecue sauce from Chick-fil-A is amazing. It's my number one. It's the only right number one above Diablo sauce even. So
I knew Ryan was going there, and I knew I was going to start this argument. That sauce is wildly overrated. Drastically. The only reason people like it is because Chick-fil-A's...
Ardell and I are going to fight you over here, Chris.
The only reason people like it, people who like barbecue sauce get it every time at Chick-fil-A because Chick-fil-A's normal barbecue sauce is garbage. It is terrible.
It's not garbage. It's just not
pretty bad.
Compare their barbecue sauce to the rest of their sauce lineup. Now it's garbage.
Okay,
their barbecue,
fair.
in my opinion, their barbecue sauce loses to Wendy's barbecue sauce. That's saying something.
I knew you were going to say that, James. Of course you say that. You love Wendy's.
That's the only barbecue. That's the only sauce that beats anything at Chick-fil-A. Okay,
I don't love Wendy's, and I agree with James. So yes, the honey barbecue whatever from the packet at Chick-fil-A is better than their barbecue sauce. But that's only because their barbecue sauce is trash. If you had any other barbecue sauce, it would be so much better than the Chick-fil-A honey barbecue. And people also just like it because it's kind of secret. It's not laid out. You got to ask for it. You got to ask the person. Be like, hey, can I have this, please? And then they give it to you. You say, thank you. And they say, my pleasure. And people like that. They like feeling exclusive. So overrated as heck.
I don't know what you're talking about because they leave it laying out in some restaurants that I've seen. Now, some have it behind the counter. Some have it like in that
Most have it behind the
thing.
counter.
No, they don't. No, they don't. So.
Although my In-N-Out sauce is the exact same way, so I kind of just invalidated my own argument.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. So
Nice.
before we wrap everything up, I don't know if James is going to have an opinion on this, but I know Chris will. And do we want to spend another like 5 minutes?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to open this can of worms.
I don't care what you want.
It's going to go. Okay. The college football playoff. Do you agree with the decision?
So I remember a time way back in the day. A&M had a pretty good schedule, you know. Had one loss. It was to the number one team in the country, and it happened in week 2, and they didn't get in. You know, kind of crazy, kind of weird how that happened. And I have another team that has a loss in week 2, and it's to a team that's they're not even number 1. They're number 3 somehow. Somehow they're number 3, and they get in. It's kind of interesting. Also, it's just kind of against my religion that I agree. The ACC is weak. Bad conference. I agree. I don't care. If you're a group of 5 team and you are undefeated, not a group of 5, a power 5 team and you are undefeated, you have to be in the playoff. That makes no sense. I understand Florida State is probably overrated. And I kind of agree. I don't care. The principle of it is wrong. And this is kind of the first time that I've like stepped out of my physical plane within the college football world. And I've looked at it and I'm like, maybe there is an SEC bias.
Are you kidding? Of course there's an SEC bias. There has always been an SEC bias. When you look at the facts of that. And this is what I think. I think Florida State got screwed. I think they got screwed.
Agree.
They 100% got screwed. And I know some people are saying, yes, they got screwed. And yes, also, you know, they got the right teams in the playoff. No, they didn't. They didn't. I know you don't agree with Texas being in, but who are you going to put instead of Texas and Alabama? Because it was Michigan, who probably shouldn't be in it anyways because of their cheating scandal. Some people are saying,
"Oh, come on, no!"
And
we
Washington,
can't go into that. That is not cheating.
Washington, who was an obvious lock, And then the other two spots were kind of up in the air, it seemed like, for everybody else. I mean, you could put Georgia in there. You could put Florida State in there. You could put Texas in there. I don't know. So I like JJ Watt's solution. If you saw his solution on X, make it a 6-team playoff. Washington and Michigan get a first round bye, and then 3, 4, 5, and 6 get to play in the first round of the playoffs.
And that's what happens next year, and I think that'll be great come next year. There'll be a lot less of these kind of arguments. But I'm also gonna. It seems like we're being too nice. I mean, it was too mean to Alabama and wasn't mean enough to Texas. So I kind of feel like as an Aggie, I need to go after them a little bit more. Texas has a good win. They got one good win. It's a pretty good one. They beat Alabama in week 2. But they did it at home. Not many people beat Alabama at home. A certain team started that trend in their first year at the SEC. The Texas did a little early, but whatever. After that, you know what their next game against a ranked opponent was? Losing the Red River rivalry to Oklahoma, who is now not even in the top 10. Their next win against a ranked opponent, Oklahoma State in the championship game. You beat 2 ranked teams, one of them being in the second week of the season, the other being Oklahoma State. And you're in the playoff and you lost to Oklahoma?
That's why I've said for a long time that even 6 or 8 teams is not enough. It's not enough.
No, 6 is going to be good.
No, you got to turn this into... You got to turn... The way the FCS does it, I know you don't like it, Chris. The way that the FCS does it is the right way. It's a true playoff format. That's just how I feel.
It's just like Texas high school football is a true playoff format.
It is.
Texas high school football is a true playoff format where pretty much everyone gets a participation trophy and gets to go in.
No, well, that's true. The first round is a joke. Round is a joke. But
yeah,
okay.
That is a correct.
Anyways.
I mean, no, not anyways. You say we need more than 18. I would give you 8. Maybe 8 would work. But
16. At least 8. At least 8 is what I'm saying.
What would you go up to?
The highest I would go up to is probably 16. 16 would be my idea.
Okay.
Yes.
No, let's go look at the rankings real quick. I mean, we're already way off the rails, so I mean, why not keep it going?
I knew this was going to open a bag of worms with you, Chris. So I figured.
Yeah, sorry, James. You're going to have to hang on to this for a little bit. You really think? Let's just go to number 8. You think Oregon is their number 8 team in the country? Do they have any chance on God's green earth to beat Michigan?
They could.
What percentage chance would you give them to beat Michigan?
I don't know. But if you never give them a chance, then you're never
going
to be able to see it.
It's next to 0.
I think it's
There's no reason for Michigan to play Oregon in a playoff game.
It's going to
be a terrible football game. Michigan's going to destroy them. It would be no good. This is stupid.
If you never allow the Cinderella runs to happen, then they're not going to happen, and that's really what makes some money for
to happen. Guys. Oregon lost to Washington twice. You lose to Washington twice, you don't get to be in the playoffs.
I disagree. That's silly.
Why did they get a third chance to beat Washington?
Why did they play twice? That's weird.
They're in the same conference. They played in the championship game.
Oh, okay. The conference. Okay. The
Man,
conference championship.
This guy doesn't even know they're the same conference, and he's trying to give me opinions about college football. What the heck?
It's not a real. James is actually what packet are you eating?
Stop eating honey in the episode.
He's actually eating.
I'm upset in the episode.
Thank you guys for listening. I opened a bag of worms with Chris. I think I've made him more confused and I've made him upset by the end of this episode. Thank you to DraftKings Sportsbook for being our sponsor. Go and use that promo code THPN the next time you go and use their services. Thank you guys for those of you that are listening live. There's even more of you that are listening afterward. Please consider using your whatever service you have and leave a 5-star review, whether that be Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anything. Where you listen to your podcast, Google Podcasts, even leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that. So, along with Chris, who is very hacked off at me, and James, who is eating a honey packet, my name is Ryan. We will catch you guys on the flip side. We hope you guys have a good, fantastic evening, afternoon, morning, whenever you guys are listening. We'll be back with you guys again tomorrow we'll be back with you guys again tomorrow when the Stars have another game. We'll see you
We'll be back with
guys
again tomorrow.
later.